What's up, guys? Welcome to the 50K Stone Circle Q&A video. Today I have Bryce, the unknown strongman here. He's going to help me out with this.
All right, so question number one. Would you rather fight 12 Conor McGregors each the size of a duck, or one duck the size of Conor McGregor? Think about it. It's a tough one.
Well, when I was, I lived in Florida for about a year and a half. And the girl I was living with at the time, her dad was a little bit crazy, and he was trying to earn her favor, I think. So he kept buying her more chickens and more ducks. And after a while, we had like 100 chickens, and I think it was like 50 ducks. And I'm not even kidding. It was on a 5-acre piece of land, so there was just birds everywhere. And I've seen what those ducks can do. They're pretty aggressive. So I don't think I'd want to see. I don't know. I'd kind of like to see a Conor McGregor-sized duck, just because it would be cool to see like a giant duck, but also like a bunch of little people running around. Sounds really funny. I'd have to say the 12 duck-sized Conor McGregors, because it would just be funny to see little people just running around. You know, I don't know if I'd win. I'd like to see that before I die, you know.
Yeah, I think, and Sandbag training will help with that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. What is your maximum pull-up reps and maximum push-up reps?
You know, I haven't tested in a really long time, and I've kind of been specialized with circuits right now, so I rarely, if ever, go above like 6 reps per set. Of course, you could count the entire circuit as one set if you wanted to, like a giant rest pause set. Back when I was leaner, the best I ever did for pull-ups was 28, but I was like 142 pounds. So right now, I think the best I probably did somewhere around this weight was, I think it was 20 wide grip pull-ups, which is pretty cool. Push-ups, you know, I never actually really pushed for high reps. And last year I was pushing for the 5MD, which is 50 pull-ups and 100 push-ups in 5 minutes, which I got very close to, but I never actually got. And I realized pretty quick that by like rep 50 of push-ups, I'm like worn out. I've never really built my endurance with that. So I do think that I could probably push that further. Like, there are many people who are way better at that than I am. But yeah, I haven't really done max reps in a while. It's all been just circuit stuff. So I'd have to test again to say for sure.
So the same poster wants to know also, when will you box? You're missing out on maximizing youth for the future. Speed and elasticity is undefeated. Don't forget about me when you're famous. Remind me of the old times when I had a close-knit community. So that's from Simon Gonzalez. I guess he wants to know when you're gonna box. When you gonna box, dude?
Yeah, I know Simon. I honestly don't think I will probably ever box like an actual person. I did have a heavy bag for a while, and I used to like shadow boxing and stuff. I thought it was really fun. Although my rescue dog, he has an issue with like punching things, and so even from the other room, it just freaked him out. So I kind of had to stop that pretty quick. But I think if I was going to get into something, it would probably be more like wrestling, because I just think that just seems cooler to me. I like the way that punching and everything looks. And I was in Taekwondo for a long time when I was younger. I got up to a red belt, so that was like one away from black. And we did some punching there, but you know, I've always thought like wrestling and kicking things like that just seems cooler to me. So probably get into wrestling first. I feel like Sandbags would probably transfer pretty well to that. But at this moment, you know, I'm pretty much spending every second I have working. So I just, you know, I don't want to go to a wrestling thing and then just never go back because I don't have time. So maybe in the future I'll get into it. But for now, it's just, you know, YouTube and work pretty much. So
yeah. Wrestling those guys are so strong, man.
Yeah, it's cool to watch too.
Yeah, my nephew wrestles. I'm trying to get him to do some sandbags.
Yeah.
Like his coach doesn't have him do them, and I guess he's used to throwing bodies around, so he doesn't see the need to throw sandbags. Or I'm trying to convince him that
Yeah.
that's the good work, man. Football, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the next question. How do you know when you're ready to go beyond something like 100 pounds? Like, if I've been working out with a 100-pound sandbag, when do I know I can start a 150-pound sandbag?
That's a good question. First, I would say if you're working with a 100-pound sandbag and it's actually giving you somewhat of a challenge, you probably don't want to jump all the way up to 150 because that's 50 pounds in sand is a lot of weight. I would say you'd be better off jumping to maybe 125, maybe 130, something like that. My mind wants to stay 135 because barbells, but it depends on what you're working on. If you've been doing the sandbag to shoulder, that's pretty easy. If you can get 15 reps per shoulder in a workout, then you're ready to move up. If you're doing carries, I would say if you can push that thing for at least, a minute and a half to 2 minutes, you're definitely ready. It just depends how heavy it feels to you because I understand where you're coming from because for me, when I first started out, I stayed with the same weight for way longer than I should have just because I didn't realize that sandbags were never going to get easier. So I think I started around like 175, maybe something like that. And I just kept going and it never actually got easier. I was able to do more, but it felt just as hard as it had when I first started. And so it's almost like sandbags kind of trick you because you expect them to feel lighter, but they never really feel lighter. If you're moving a 300-pound sandbag, maybe 150 is going to start to feel a bit lighter, but it's 150 still feels kind of heavy to me. And so I would just say if you can do 15 per shoulder, that's a good point. Carry it for a minute to a minute and a half in a bear hug position. That's probably another good metric. I would just force yourself to move on before you think you're ready because sandbags will kind of trick you in that way.
I agree with that. I think you could get a lot of great work in with a 100-pound sandbag if that was your, like you said, it's sort of like what your goals are. Do you want to shoulder a 300-pound sandbag, or do you want to build muscle, endurance? Yeah, but you're right. You're right about the sandbags. They don't really get easier. Like my 150-pound sandbag, I can break through that barrier more so than I could when I first started, but it still feels heavy.
From the outside, it looks. If anyone watching this hasn't seen Unknown Strongman, the channel, like he'll throw 300 up to his shoulder like it's 100. So this is coming from someone that just completely mogs 300 and is saying that. So I appreciate the backup on that one. And yeah, you're right. You could build a lot of muscle with a 100-pound sandbag if you wanted to. Push towards single leg things like lunges, maybe if you want to just do like extra high volume. Pressing a 100-pound sandbag for most people is pretty difficult. So you could still get a lot out of it. It just depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, that's good right there. Get some push reps in or do some, anyway, you've said it. You've said it right there. You get a lot of great work in with a 100-pound sandbag.
Heck yeah.
Royal Path Conditioning. He says, first, I'm a massive fan. I spend more time on your channel than pretty much any other, at least in the fitness space. Second, I started using sandbags and calisthenics exclusively about 3 years ago, which is a year before I discovered you. It was a massive help to discover you so that I could begin to build real framework around progression, which brings me to my question. I love your 2 books. I admittedly never fully engaged with the first book because I had already written a progressive program that focused on explosion that worked better for me for my time constraints. However, I really love the philosophy of the second book and want to engage more fully with it. That being said, I worked 40 plus hours in finishing another degree and married with 3 daughters and under 6 years old. Wow. If you could build sandbag intensity into a 30-minute a day, 3-day-a-week program, how would you do it? Well, this is a very complicated, probably, this is something you could probably write a book on. If you could build a sandbag intensity into a 30-minute a day, 3-day-a-week program, how would you do it? He said, sorry, that's a lot, but I didn't want to waste my opportunity to talk to the sandbag goat.
Well, first off, thanks a lot. I have very few YouTubers that I actually watch consistently. I used to watch more, but there's really just a few guys that I like. So to know that I could be like that person for you is just so cool to think about. So thank you for that. And also thank you for supporting me by getting the books. And I'm glad you like them. So Sandbag intensity, you could very easily turn that into a 3 days per week, 30 minutes setup. What I would do, I would probably take out the one motions, because that does take a bit of time. If you don't know, the program starts with 5 singles with the one motion lift from the ground to the chest, with just like a little bit of rest in between. So that's 5 reps for at least 5 to 10 minutes right there. So I would probably just take that out. I would start with the Sandbag workout A starts with the row, and do that exactly the same with the 5 to 10 sets of whatever, so, and follow the progression as it's written out there. And then after that, that should only take 10 minutes, maybe a couple more if you're doing 10 sets, 10 to 15 minutes. So that gives you another 15 minutes. I would just say give yourself a time constraint. So do like a straight up density style approach where you have 15 minutes to do as many box squats as you can. I would use a heavy weight, something that maybe challenges you for right now for a good 20 to 30 reps. If you start with a 10 rep max like the program suggests, it might be hard to push for a full 15 minutes. But if you start with something that's a little bit lighter, not too light, but a little bit lighter, something that you could maybe get between say 50 to 100 reps in those 15 minutes, that's what I would do. So just choose a weight and then give yourself 15 minutes, try to get as many reps as you can. And then on the next workout, Sandbag workout B, start with your rows and then just do the box squat and try to get an extra rep and within that time. Or you could use a couple different weights if you want to, and just have multiple sets of 15 minutes that you're trying to get an extra rep or two every single workout, and that should work great. And I think that's that kind of captures the essence of the program. It's rows, carries, and the Sandbag box squat. So I think I said rows on Sandbag day B, but that's actually carries. So workout A, you do your rows and then 15 minutes of box squats. Sandbag workout B, you do your carries and 15 minutes of box squats. And then I would say do those on a Monday and Friday. And then on Wednesday, just do a calisthenic circuit. 30 minutes is more than enough to, I recommend doing that within the 20 to 25 minute time frame. So just do a calisthenic circuit. If you do that in 20 to 25 minutes, I would say skip the isolation work for the arms and everything and hit your neck if you can, because I think training the neck is like one of the most important things you can do. So, 20 to 25 minutes of calisthenics, couple minutes of neck curls and extensions, and you'd be good to go.
You sound like you've written a couple books on sandbags before.
Just a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. The next question is, do you have knee pain? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I had that thing called Osgood-Slaughter disease, which sounds way more terrible than it is. It sounds like you're like slaughtering someone or something. But it basically just means it basically just meant my knees hurt. So I did track and I played soccer. That was my main thing. And just, running around, my knees would just hurt. And so I kind of just pushed through it. It was one of those things, but my knees always kind of gave me a little bit of trouble. And then when I was first getting into lifting, I was doing landmine squats where you hold the bar like this and then you squat down. But I didn't really understand warming up my legs correctly at that point. And I also didn't understand mobility at all. And that exercise forces you to have a pretty good amount of mobility. And I didn't have it. And so I was doing it one time and I tore something in my right knee. I'm pretty sure it was a meniscus. And for, I think it was like a month or two, I had trouble walking upstairs and everything. I just didn't train my legs. And then finally that healed. I came back and did the same thing. And I did landmine squats. And because my left knee had been taking all the burden for the last couple months, I tore the same thing in that one. And then it was another couple months. And so for a couple of years after that, I just accepted knee pain. It just hurt pretty much all the time. And the thing that finally fixed it. The thing that surprised me at the time was getting a lot stronger at squats. So I got my back squat up to, I think it was mid 200s. And once I hit that point, my knee pain just disappeared. Like I didn't have it anymore. And that was all it took. You know, it was just getting stronger at squats. I think when you build the muscle in that area, it just takes the pressure off of the knees themselves, and then it doesn't hurt as much. If I was going to try to do that, you know, I feel like squatting a barbell or something like that allows you to get, it just, if I was trying to train specifically just for knee pain and I was trying to use squats to do it, I would probably use a barbell, honestly, just because it's so convenient and you can load it up so much heavier and it's easier to get more of a range of motion when you use the barbell. So that would be my recommendation. As far as now, I don't have any knee pain. I've overdone sprinting a couple times just because it's so fun. And I'm out in the mountains now, so I just go out there and like run around too much. And then I might be a little bit achy for, you know, a couple days, but I'll just back off and it goes away. With the high rep box squats, there's been a couple times where I'm like 300 reps in and my knees just feel really swollen, if that makes sense. And after that, like they stop hurting. You know, it doesn't really, it hasn't been an issue. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Only 300 reps, huh?
Yeah, just 300.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, I had shoulder issues, and what cured it was more like mobility training and movement in the arm. And I think it's a lot of movement. Movement helped me with just about any pain that I've ever had. I'm in no pain anywhere. I'm 43 years old, and just a lot of mobility training just really helped. Okay, Alex Swartz asks, what's your thoughts on my programming? 2 days a week, heavy sandbag to shoulder, squats and carries. 3 days a week, GTG style push-ups, dips, and pull-ups for a total of 3 to 5 sets, each to failure, each done throughout the day. 2 days a week, 30 to 60 minute bike or run, 10,000 steps a day, active lawn mowing job. Do you want me to read that again?
That's a lot of volume right there.
That's a lot,
yeah.
a lot.
One thing I'll say is that I'm not really a fan of greasing the groove to failure. I feel like that is, I mean, you might be able to pull it off for a little bit, but if you're, how many exercises was it he's doing on the greasing the groove day?
3 days a week. I think he's doing the grease the groove style push-ups, dips, and pull-ups for 3 to 5 sets.
Okay, so
3. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're doing 3 exercises to failure for 5 sets each, that's 15 sets to failure. And if you're doing that 2 days a week or 3 days a week, that's 30 to 45 sets to failure right there. I think that is, if you're going to actual true failure, I think that's a recipe for burnout. Just because there's only so many times you can go to failure in a week, in my opinion, at least. If it was me, I would keep those sets sub-maximal. So the greasing the groove, the point with greasing the groove is just to accumulate a lot of volume, a lot of quality reps over time. You know, I've read some things about the difference between going to failure and not going to failure. There was a pretty old Chad Waterbury article on T Nation, and he talked about the difference between going to failure with greasing the groove pull-ups versus staying a couple reps shy. And what he found was going to failure improved the number of reps he could do by the end, but staying shy of failure built him more muscle. So that's something to consider depending on your goals. But he was also only doing pull-ups, and so going to failure with that is, you know, that's a lot less intense than doing that, you know, 30 to 45 times in a week with different exercises. So I think the program looks solid. I mean, if you're mowing as a job, you probably have a pretty pretty high level of work capacity as it is, just because you're moving all day. So your tolerance for work is probably pretty good. That's what I used to do too, was mowing. But if it were me, you could try it for a while and see how it goes. And if you're fine with it, then I would just keep going. But if you're having issues and it feels like you're starting to get tired and feeling run down all the time, I would keep at least most of those greasing the groove style sets sub-maximal. So, you know, rather than doing 3 to 5 sets each, you might consider, or 3 to 5 sets to failure, you might consider doing 6 to 10 sets where you just do half the number of reps. So if failure is 10 reps each set, you might just do 5 each time and do twice as many of them. And it seems like, because that's the same volume, that would wear you down like in the same way. But because you're not pushing yourself to true failure, you will be able to do that with less overall fatigue. So that would be my recommendation. But sounds like a cool setup.
He's a busy dude.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a fat menace asks, if you have them, what are your thoughts on incorporating overcoming isometrics into sandbag lifting?
I haven't tried it myself, but I think it sounds like a really good idea. I can see that building a lot of strength, though it's not something I've really experimented with much myself. Isometrics are one of those things that I've thrown in just on occasion, and it always seems like it probably works really well. And I've read a lot about how well it works. I just, for some reason, have never really pushed too much with it myself. So yeah, I would assume it would work, but I just don't have too much experience with it myself. I know the Pioneer was really into overcoming isometrics a few years ago. So at the very least, if you're looking for motivation, I recommend checking out some of those videos, because I assume anything he says could apply to sandbags as well.
Gamer 5697. It's not spelled like gamer. I'm not gonna. Never mind. What do you do for recovery? I would like to keep moving, doing couple light sets even on full recovery days. Active recovery is basically, I guess, what he's saying, but still doing the movements.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna try to mimic the actual movements that you do, I like bands for active recovery. I'll be honest, lately I've been really bad because I've been taking off days actually now, whereas I was training every day for so long. I've been doing 2 days on, 1 day off. And on those off days, I honestly don't move that much. I might just be standing there at the computer for all day, and that's just it. And I know I probably should move more, but if I was going to do active recovery, it would definitely be with band stuff. I would take like a band, just do some band good mornings, and we use a light band, do some band curls, band pull aparts. I think that's probably the best way. Those 3 right there. Band good mornings. Back when I was working, I did 14-hour days, 3 days in a row when I was working at one of the dog kennels, and I did that because then I got 4 days off after that, which was nice. So it was my choice. But I'd notice after like partway through day 2, my back would just be kind of stiff just from being on my feet for so long. And I found if I brought my band to work and did just a quick set of 20 band good mornings, it like made me feel fresh again. So doing some sub-maximal sets, I wouldn't push them to failure, just throughout the day. I think that could help a lot with active recovery.
Okay. Health culture _PA asks or says, here's the thing I'm curious about. Clearly you have some connection to fantasy and nerd culture. So what is your poison of choice? Dungeons and Dragons? Are you an anime fan? Did you grow up on Chrono Tiger and Final Fantasy? Perhaps Elder Scroll games? Maybe even LARPing? I know you like The Witcher. We all love The Witcher.
Yeah, for me it was Final Fantasy X. That was my first one, and that's still one of my favorite games ever. The To Xanarkin song, like if I hear it, I still like get a little bit of those chills on my back, a little bit. It's like that was such a good game. I think Dungeons and Dragons is cool, but I've never actually played it. And I didn't get into, I think I played Morrowind like a little bit when I was younger, but I don't think I understood it. So I kind of moved on. It wasn't until um, Skyrim had been out I think it was like 2018 when I finally played Skyrim. So it had already been out for a while. That was when I got into the Elder Scrolls. Yeah, I've always liked different fantasy stuff. I had a period of time when I think I was like 19, where I did get pretty into anime for a while. And I watched like all of the good ones that exist. And then I realized that like everything else was just like kind of strange and I didn't like it that much. And then I kind of never went back. My favorite one I ever watched was called Steins Gate, which was pretty cool. Trying to think. Yeah, it was, it was a lot of Final Fantasy. That was like my favorite thing. I got a Final Fantasy X and World of Warcraft. I think I was in 7th grade when those both came out, like around the same time, or I'm not sure if they came out at the same time, but I got them for Christmas. And I remember I kind of started playing World of Warcraft, but Final Fantasy X was just so fun. So I just pushed through that. And then I played Final Fantasy 12 after that too, and I really liked that one. And then I got hooked on World of Warcraft and just didn't play anything else for a couple of years because I was so obsessed with it. And I really liked video games when I was younger. And then when I got to about freshman year of high school, that's when my uncle, he played guitar and stuff, and he taught me that trying to remember, Nothing Else Matters, I think, the Metallica song, the dun, 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 like that song. And after that I got hooked. I joined bands and stuff, so I just forced myself not to play video games because I wanted to get better at guitar. And I kind of went away from all the nerd stuff for a good 5 to 10 years. I think I was just doing music, and then slowly it came back. I think the first sign that I was remembering who I was I started listening to stuff like what Korpiklani, I think is how you say that, Ensiferum, stuff like that. Like it's like fantasy metal basically. And I remember my roommate was my bandmate, and he would like, he thought it was stupid because obviously that was like a different kind of music than what we were listening to and what we were playing. And so I'd kind of get shit for it, but I always I'd listen to it really loud when he wasn't home and stuff. And that Garmarna, I think is how you say that, the Hermana League, there's a video of that put over some movie, and that was like, I think that was the spark, actually. I saw that video just recommended on YouTube, and I watched it, and I was like, whoa, people out in like tabards and or tunics and shit, and they're out there like in the Highlands fighting trolls and all this stuff. Oh yeah, this stuff is cool. And then I'm pretty much back into it. Like if I'm walking dogs or whatever, it's listening to fantasy books and all that. So I'm glad I got back into it.
I'm with you on that, man. I love it. I love fantasy stuff. If I hear the Witcher 3 soundtrack, any of the music, it puts me right back into it. Like right back into it.
Yeah, and now the 4th one is coming out, and I want to play it so bad, but I've kind of forced myself not to play video games again because I'm just trying to work so much. But it's like I'd need to buy a new console. I think I'd need the PS5 and all this stuff. And it's like, man, it'll be there waiting for me someday. I know.
I'd almost buy you one just so you could play it.
Yeah,
I think everybody deserves to play it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. PK Peepo writes, ask, have you realized the massive impact you've had on all of our lives? That's nice.
Yeah, well, thank you. I don't know. It seems like there are seems like a lot more people are getting interested in sandbags and just odd objects in general. And I like to think maybe I had I had a part, I played a part in that, but it's hard for me to tell. I appreciate it. I'm just making videos that I think are cool, and it's like so cool that other people think it's cool too. And, you know, I think the community is surrounding like sandbags and stones is just so cool. It's, everyone's just cool. You know, there's no gatekeeping, or maybe with some of the historical stone stuff, but just like in general, people just, you know, they're not trying to say this is the best thing ever. No one's fighting about it like people do with, you know, barbells, and I've talked with some very extreme kettlebell people, but also some very nice ones. But it's you know, it's just cool. So, you know, I'm glad I could, you know, help people get into this stuff, because sandbags did change my life. So, you know, I'm glad that it's helping other people too. So thank you for that.
I've seen a lot of people come into stone lifting and sandbags with like a really great big ego, and then they see how the community is, and it's so many people acting a certain way within a community that they quickly learn that like we're different. It's different here.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's like sandbags and stones and all that stuff. It's almost like tied to that last question of thinking fantasy stuff is cool. I feel like this style of lifting is more tied to that, whereas if you're like the typical gym person, that's more tied to like modern times. I don't know. That's how I see it, at least, and I just think it's cool.
It is cool, man. You're right. Um, trying to read this name. Cheek baby. Cheek baby. What
Oh
made you
yeah.
start? What made you start this channel, and what got you started on sandbag trading?
Yeah, that's what's up, Sheik? If you haven't seen his channel, I recommend checking it out. He's doing like handstands and like the most insane neck bridging stuff you've ever seen, which is it's really cool. And you also seem like a very nice guy, and you know, look out for your family and all that stuff. So yeah. But starting the channel, when I originally started, it was in January of 22, I think. It's hard for me to remember. And I just, I'm really into all the high lung and stuff like that, that kind of music. And I think that magic exists. And I watched this video on stone circles and how weird stuff happens in them. And so I was like, heck yeah, the stone circle. I lift stones. Why not upload videos of me just lifting stones? And for the first, I think until summer, I just uploaded videos that no one saw of me just doing full workouts and everything. I eventually deleted them. I wish I had kept them, but then it was around that time. I had been a huge fan of Ivan DeJuric, I think. Squat every day. He just passed 2,000 days actually, so it's insane.
Wow.
But I liked the setup. You check in every day, show what you were doing, and just train every day. So I was like, well, I don't really want to squat every day, but I think backs are cool. Like getting a strongman back is awesome. So for a long time, before I even posted any informative content, I just did training back every day, and I forced myself pretty much every single day to do a voiceover. I was really bad at it at first, and it was like kind of like a training period for being able to talk. So did that for a while, and then I made a video about conjugate bodybuilding, I think is what it was, because I was kind of doing something like that. And it was the first informative style video I had ever made. And I think at the end of that video, I said, now I'll go back to the motivational stuff. There are other people who are way better than me at the informative stuff. I don't need to do this stuff. But I think that right there just kind of like set in motion. Oh, it's really fun to talk about, the finer details of things, stuff that isn't just a minute long and a short or whatever, because that used to be the max. And so I, slowly just started doing the informative content, and, I got hooked on it, and it was fun. As for starting, I think part of it also was that I was just feeling really stuck in life. I've said this before in a few places, but I was showing up to work early in the morning and cleaning kennels that puppies had been in all night and stuff like that. And I had no prospects for the future. it was just like, this could be it for the rest of my life. And so I think YouTube just represented a potential for some kind of different kind of future. And that's kind of why I stuck with it, I think, because it was like this little ember of hope, and it slowly built over time. And I've also said this, but it actually led to me quitting that job and getting my personal training certification, which I didn't go work in gyms because I didn't like it, but that was like the catalyst for me to go start an animal care business and work for myself for the first time. And then, that kind of gave me more opportunity to practice making videos and getting better at it. As far as sandbags, I had been plateaued for a long time, and I was reading for years. Every single night I read T Nation before bed. That was just what I read. I really liked it. A lot of those old articles were really good. I think they've gone to a paid subscription kind of thing now, so I haven't really checked in. But those old articles were really cool. And I think I saw something by Brooks Cubic on there, or someone recommended it. And so I read his book, Dinosaur Training. And he's just so excited about lifting odd objects that I straight away just went and tried to lift one. And it affected me so much that I was hooked. In the Sandbag Intensity book, I talk about this, but I basically went out to my backyard and picked up it was like 75-pound stone, carried it for 30 minutes straight, and ended up with the most intense soreness ever. And I realized, like, yeah, there is something to this. So the next day I made my own sandbag, ordered an IronMind bag on the internet, and then, the rest is history. It works so well, and it's so fun. So, I never want to go back.
It's been fun watching you grow, brother.
Hey, you as well.
Excuse me. Emma Roddy. Is it Emma? Emma Roddy 7020 says, Cody, really enjoying your channel. Love the music you put in your vids. Would you ever consider creating a Spotify or something similar playlist so we can listen to your jams? Rock on, dude. Literally and musically.
Yeah, I need to go lift a stone. Well, first off, thanks a lot for that. I really appreciate it. I have been meaning to make a playlist for at least a year now, I think longer. I actually listen to everything on YouTube Music. If you get YouTube Premium, it comes with YouTube Music with it. So I figured, why not? Why pay for two things? I don't want to listen to ads, so I just use YouTube Music. So I think if I was going to make a playlist, it would probably be on that, just because I haven't used Spotify in a really long time. But every time I think about doing it, it's such an insane thing to try to do, to put, all of the music that exists to try to put it into a playlist. And at the same time, it's like the variety of music is so different. I would need to create different playlists for different moods. And every time I think about it, I realize how big of a project it is, and I just haven't done it yet. I still mean to, and sorry for taking so long. I know I've said I was going to do it for a while. I keep putting it off.
I have a like ambient black metal playlist for lifting in winter, and then a high long playlist for stones whenever. It's like you have to make different playlists,
Yeah. I'd be interested in seeing those, because at this point I've basically just been like, I'll show up to the gym or my basement and I'll just open the YouTube Music app, and whatever comes to mind, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a band I like, and then I'll play it, and then I'll get hooked on them for a little bit, and I'll go back to other stuff. But it would be nice to have a playlist so I could remember things, because I know there's a lot of stuff I forgot.
I use the YouTube Premium too. It just makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just as good. Like, it has all the music, and you can also see like YouTube comments from the videos on the tracks in the app, which I think is kind of cool, because sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it's just cool to see that other people like the same thing you do,
Yeah, conversation starts between the other fans of that music that you happen to like too. And also, I like remixes, like slowed and reverb type stuff, and you can get that on YouTube too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's nice that it's all on there. Like, it's all of YouTube, but in like a Spotify format, which is nice.
Yeah. YouTube should pay us right now.
I know. Yeah. Could you imagine getting a YouTube sponsorship?
This is an odd question. Ronald Rumraisin. You ever try squeezing a sandbag between your legs?
I can see why that would be, I see why it's funny, but I also see how it could be like effective, because maybe if you're in grappling or something, I think you probably squeeze people with your legs. I haven't done it, but what I can say is the box squats, especially when I use the IronMind sandbag, it really likes to fall between your legs. So during those sets with the IronMind bags, I am constantly squeezing that thing at least a little bit with my legs. It's like a constant play between it falling a little bit. I have to squeeze it really hard and then use my grip to lift it a bit higher and make my stance narrower. And then I've always been a wide stance squatter, so I'll inevitably widen my stance again, and then the whole cycle repeats. And I do think it's actually there's like a lot of untapped potential there. I think I'm not sure how effective randomly squeezing the sandbag a little bit as it falls between my legs is for actually training that. But I have noticed that my tolerance for doing that has improved a lot, because when I first started, my the adductors just got trashed every single time. But after I did it a bit, it's like I could just keep squeezing that thing all day. So I could see that being effective. I've never done it, strictly just squeezing the bag. It brings to mind the Nala roll. I don't know if you remember that. The Brian Alshrew, he has a dog named Nala, and so he had this move. I used to do it a lot, where you basically like grab the sandbag and roll it over your body when you're like laying on the ground, and then you roll onto your back and then do like a side flip thing. And you kind of squeeze it during that. And that felt pretty cool. So if it were me, I probably wouldn't just put the sandbag and just squeeze it. I'd try to find something to, something that maybe makes use of that or incorporates that while you're getting something else at the same time, like maybe some box squats, or I think that Nala roll thing is really cool.
I like the idea of the roll and the squeezing it.
Yeah.
That would work a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Herbert Lindsay. Is the 10 down better than 5-3-2 or the 6-5-4 for calisthenics circuits? I asked because I saw a calisthenics circuit video talking about a 4-day-a-week 10 down workout schedule. Thanks in advance.
Yeah, so I still really like the 10 down. It's it's a classic. It's sort of the traditional, at least as far as I know, like the traditional prisoner style way to do it. 10 down. For anyone who isn't aware, 10 down means you do 10 reps of an exercise, the 9, 8, 7, 6. When I made those circuits, I added a bunch of exercises. So rather than doing 10 down with just one, I like to do it with 4 or 5. And it works very well. I have it in the Sandbag Hypertrophy program, but what I've realized is that it's very hard to it's one of those things, like one person can get a 10 down done in 10 minutes, whereas another person, it might take 50 minutes. So it's very hard to in the context of a program, I don't think I'll probably ever recommend it again, because if someone has taken 50 minutes to do it, that is a much higher recovery demand for that person. And so I found that doing something like a ladder, 5-3-2, 6-4-2, something like that within a set time limit, going for rounds. So that's what I've been doing with the Sandbag Intensity program. Say you use a 5-3-2 and that's like 4 or 5 different exercises. And once you complete 5 reps of each, 3 of each, 2 of each, that's 1 round. Go for max rounds in the 20 to 25 minute range. Try to increase or decrease your time till you're under 20 minutes, then add another round. I feel like it's much easier to manage that way. And that way it's the same for everyone. It doesn't matter if you get 1 round or if you get 10 rounds. It's still going to be similar because you're in that 20 to 25 minute range. So from like a step back perspective, I feel like the ladders are just superior simply because it's easy to recommend something for everyone, and everyone's going to benefit from it in a similar way. Whereas the 10 down, it's so individual. But I still like the 10 down, if I'm being honest, most of the time I've spent with 10 down has actually been a segmented 10 down. So I might do 10 reps of each thing. Then instead of doing 9, I'll do 5 plus 4. And then for 8, I'll do 5 plus 3 and stuff like that. Just because, using pull-ups and dips and all these exercises, I just felt like it was too demanding on the muscles compared to the cardio. And so when I'm doing these circuits, I'm always trying to balance endurance and muscle as equally as I can. And so I found the new recommendation I have is pretty much to never go above 6 reps. That seems to be the sweet spot for most people and myself. If you can keep the reps per set to 6 reps or fewer, you will be able to go much faster. If you're only doing singles, like on the far other end of that, you're going to be slower because if you do a single rep of each exercise, then it's going to be a lot more time spent moving from one exercise to the next. But something like a 6-4-2, a 5-3-2, it seems to be the perfect middle ground of, okay, every set of 5 is pushing me to failure. Every set of 3 is still pretty close. And then the 2 is almost like a rest, just enough rest that you can go back to that 5 and do it again. And, I have to say, like right now, I like ladders significantly more. And, also shout out to Jeff Rourke. He told me that he actually was the one that created the 5-3-2 back in the day. When I first read about that, it was on like T Nation, and he told me that he was posting these crazy feats of strength endurance using the 5-3-2, and then these prolific writers were asking him about it, and then they kind of like wrote about it as if it was their thing. So it's like, man, that kind of sucks. But yeah, so shout out to him for that, because I think 5-3-2 is probably my favorite setup of all time. I know that was kind of a roundabout way of saying that, but I would probably choose the ladders any day over the 10 down personally.
You can believe Jeff too. That guy's a smart guy, and I consider him a brother. He knows his stuff. Very, very smart. I find a lot of guys. I'm not a calisthenics expert. I did a lot more before I started strongman, but they'll send me these programs. They say, "How does my program look?" And I tell them to ask someone better, but that's better equipped to answer it. But they always give me these programs that's like the volume is through the roof, and they're like, "I have trouble finishing it." It's like, well, it's too much. You're just starting to train. You got to go do some push-ups, go for a run, go, get in shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that's the thing. Like with the 10 down, I mean, for someone just starting out, 10 down is 55 reps per exercise. If you're doing that with 4 exercises, that's 220 reps right there. I think that's a lot of reps for someone just starting out. And that's sort of why I've kind of taken on the ladder style approach and using that set time limit, because then it's, you're starting out, like, even if you only get 50 reps total, for you, 50 reps is equally as effective as 250 reps is for someone who's more advanced. It's I think that's something people often miss, is that the exercises don't matter. Volume doesn't matter. A band-assisted pull-up is not worse than a standard pull-up. All that matters is that it challenges you as an individual. And so right now, if you need to use band assistance, that is going to work just as well for you as regular pull-ups will for someone who doesn't need it. And on the topic of Jeff, like if you ever talk to him, you'll know, like, he's the real deal. He's been around forever.
Absolutely. He's so strong, man. His kids are strong too. This is going to be awesome. Love these Q&A style vids. My question is, what are your ideas for training when you feel you have taken your high rep box squats far enough? Would you consider the same for sandbag to shoulder for distance? Keep up the quality content. You're killing it as always.
Hey, first off, just thanks for the question, Michael, and thanks for always being here. just always supporting everything. I just appreciate it more than I can say. And I hope that you enjoy this style Q&A. I know it's not the same as the ones I was doing before where I was, I was writing every single little thing out, and I just thought it'd be cool to do like a face-to-face. So hopefully you like this style, and it's as informative. I know you've said that you like the interview style stuff, so hopefully you like this one. So the question is, ideas for training when you feel like you've taken your high rep box squats far enough. That's a really good question, and I keep thinking that I'm at that point because I've done 175 pounds for 500 reps. Like how much further realistically does it make sense to push that? And the problem is now that I've pushed all of the weights so far that really my only option is to come in knowing that I'm doing, a couple hundred reps, or I've got to push heavier weights. And so for me, I just like box squats so much, and I've had so many positive effects from them that, and just speaking on that, even just recently, like I feel like once I did that set of 500, it was like I evolved into something else, like I'm a freaking Pokemon or something. My body would feel a little bit, it wouldn't hurt or anything like that, but I would feel like this intense fatigue come over me when I would do these high rep sets. And when I did that set of 500, because I had a set time limit because I had to do it before my battery on my camera died out. So I went much faster. And doing that, it's like I feel like I've reached a new level. So even then, even doing a set of 500 reps, I feel like I'm just getting started, So for me personally, I don't know if I'll ever see the end of them. I don't know. It has to come eventually. I'd like to start working with a 300-pound sandbag for the box squats. The problem is I use my 275-pound sandbag as the box. And when I use the 275-pound sandbag, like as my actual weight, I have to use a smaller bag. So I have to squat down lower, like below parallel. And that makes it a lot more challenging. So I've been thinking about, putting 300 pounds in the 275 bag and then using that for box squats. But apart from squatting lower, it's actually, or the sandbag is also more narrow, the 220 I've been using. So I'm always afraid I'm going to fall off the side. So I think I need to get a dedicated 300-pound sandbag before I start doing that. But I don't know when I'll see the end, but once I do, I think a good idea would probably be to give myself a time limit. I think that would be a good way to do it. Just make it more of a density style thing. I know you've mentioned a few times doing something like a drop set, using the heaviest one for max reps and then going to a lighter one. I think that could be cool too. I think there are a lot of ways you could do it. Right now, even at this kind of extreme level, I still feel like doing it the way I have been, where I just keep pushing and just don't worry about time, is still working. I like to get the stuff on camera, so I think my time limit is 2 hours because that's how long my camera lasts. So I guess long term, maybe I'll just try to condense these sets to make sure each one doesn't go longer than 2 hours. But for anyone else, I think giving yourself a time limit. I honestly think you could probably build a similar amount of strength and muscle doing max reps in 20 minutes as you could repping out a lightweight for 2 hours. You won't get the same strength endurance benefits. It just depends what you're after. Sandbag to shoulder, I was so set on getting 300 to my shoulder at the beginning of last year. So that was a long time ago. I was set on that. And then, I was getting close to 275. And then I started writing the book and I stopped eating as much as I should have. I was just consumed by it. And then I was like, I've dropped some weight. Why not get shredded? So I got shredded for 6 months, and now I'm hooked on box squats. So for the sandbag to shoulder, I think I care a little bit less about going for ultra heavy weights on the sandbag to shoulder at the moment. I think 300, if I can get that, I don't know if I care that much to go much heavier, just because I'm a light guy. I'm like 170 right now. I don't see myself ever weighing more than 180, even 10 years down the road, just because I don't know how much muscle I'm going to add. You know, if I could get to a lean 180 eventually, that'd be pretty cool. But even then, you know, 300 pounds, that's still 120 pounds more than my body weight. So, I think I'd be content with 300. As far as what to do, I just work on volume after that. You know, I realize I'm kind of rambling a little bit here. Sorry about that, but I want to make sure I answer the question well. So, I feel like once I hit 300, my goal would probably be to work towards doing it just better and just become more explosive with it. And after that, probably go for more of a strength endurance approach, just taking like, see if I could take 200 for 100 reps or whatever. So I hope that answers the question. I think once you get to a certain point with the box squats, probably just doing a more of a density approach would probably be a good way to go. And with the shoulder, I would just build up volume once I hit that level where I feel like this is enough, you know? So yeah, that's it.
Great answer. Have you had any injuries related to sandbag training? Daniel Hawkmuth wants to know. Hawkmuth.
So I haven't really had any injuries. When I first started out, the one thing I can think of is my arms, the tendons in my arm were still getting used to doing lifting with that false grip. And I remember I had a few times where it felt like the tendons in like my wrist or my forearm were like grinding on each other. It felt really weird. It wasn't an injury. I was afraid it was, but it wasn't. That's something I can think of. When I tried to learn the planche and I got very into doing straight arm stuff at the same time as doing a bunch of sandbag lifts, I did get some pretty bad tendinitis in my left elbow for a while. And, you know, that kind of sucked. But once I backed off the straight arm stuff, it went away. So, you know, I always take a really long time to warm up. I'm always trying to, you know, make sure I don't get injured. I spend a good half hour before I start actually just doing band stuff, getting my, like stretching out my hip flexors and stuff like that. So I've been pretty fortunate there. Yeah, so I've none so far, but we'll see. Hopefully none in the future.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's sort of hard to understand what's an injury and what's just something you need to work through. So Fruitful King. How would you design a program for athletes who compete in a sport, rugby, wrestling, etc., but want to use sandbags for the strength and conditioning work? Would the program center around the box squat, row, or carry, ideally 2 days a week to allow for plenty of recovery for the specific sports training as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. And at this moment, I would say, yeah, just from my experience, if you want to get the most out of sandbags in the least amount of time, the least amount of fatigue, and just build the body in the most efficient way possible, I would choose those exercises, you know, the box squat, the row, and the carry. I feel like those cover everything. And, you know, I think I was so obsessed with the sandbag to shoulder. I still love it. I don't want to sound like I don't, but when I was talking about the sandbag to shoulder, I think it was easy to gloss over the fact that even in the sandbag hypertrophy program, most of the work you do isn't actually the sandbag to shoulder. You practice your sport at the start to get more efficient at it, and then you use the other exercises to build it up. And that's kind of always been my philosophy. It's the sandbag to shoulder is the ultimate muscle building, strength building, whatever building exercise because it drives the program. It isn't necessarily the thing that you do the most. It's just the thing that makes you do the other things because you want to improve it, and doing the other things is going to improve it. So, like if you don't care about the sport that is the sandbag to shoulder, if your only goal is improving your actual sport that you're playing, then I honestly don't see much reason to do the full sandbag to shoulder. Maybe every once in a while, it obviously does give you some unique benefits that you can't get elsewhere. But in terms of just straight up building your base super wide and getting everything that Sandbags have to offer, building muscle over the largest area and everything. I just think it's hard to beat those basic fundamentals, rowing the sandbag, squatting it and carrying it. That's, I think that's going to give you everything you want. So even if you just did a program that was, say, Monday, you do a couple sets of rows, a couple sets of carries, and then box squats, say, again, using that density style approach I mentioned earlier, where maybe you're doing max reps within 10 minutes or something like that, and then just did the same thing on Thursday and just called it quits at that. I think that would probably be pretty good for a sport specific program. I think it depends on what your sport is. You're talking rugby and wrestling, so that's a very, it's you going against other people. And I think for something like that, it might be worth also adding some specific isolation work that might carry over to that. You might want to try to really strengthen your biceps because, contrary to what many people think, they're very involved when you're trying to actively maneuver a person. Sandbags will give you a lot of that. The actual sport itself will give you that, but training your muscles through a full range of motion is always a good idea. And that's when you're doing sandbags and you're doing a sport, you might never get to that fully lengthened position. So it might be worth adding some full range of motion stuff for specific muscles, but just complete base level, I'd say, yeah, those 3 exercises done twice a week would be more than enough.
Nice. I know a lot of people want to know that. And I've talked to athletes before that really wanted to know how they could incorporate it. Okay. ACAB BC4WO. Thoughts on some sandbag to shoulder at the end of my leg day after SSB good mornings and back extensions. I only have a 100-pound sandbag and a 135-pound sandbag, and I do some reps with 100 for warm-up and then shoulder the 135.
I think you could do that if you want to. I've always believed that, at least when I look at the sandbag to shoulder, I look at it as more of a power and skill-based movement. And just from my experience, if you're going to train something like that, I think it's better to do it early in the workout. I think you're going to get the most out of it, especially if you care about the sandbag to shoulder itself. I mean, if you're only looking for like muscle and strength stuff, maybe it doesn't matter as much. You'll never be as good at the sandbag to shoulder if you do it at the end, which is fine if you don't care about improving it as if it were a sport or something like that. So I think you could do that. If it were me, I would do bear hug carries instead. I just when I first started with sandbags and stones, I would do my leg day, and then at the end of it, I would do like 2 or 3 sets of bear hug carries to failure and call it. And that alone was enough to just like give me so much more than what I was getting from just doing the barbell stuff. So if it were me, I'd probably do the carries instead. But if you want to do the sandbag to shoulder, I think that'll work too. I think that'll give you give you the benefits of sandbags while you're still also focusing on your other stuff.
Ron Royce 6 says bodybuilding program aimed solely at aesthetics, but with quick equipment restrictions of having only sandbag and say a pull-up bar. And I know you've done a little bit of this before, so I know you're gonna have a good answer for it.
Yeah, the original Sandbag Hypertrophy program is basically this. It was on Monday, you focus on the sandbag to shoulder. On Wednesday, you focus on squats, I think, and then Friday it was carries. And then after that, you would do 2 sets of horizontal push-ups, 2 sets of vertical push-ups to failure each, and then call it a day. And that works really well. And when I say horizontal push-ups, that would be working towards advanced variations. So taking a step back, I do think if you were just after aesthetics, I would probably change that program a little bit now that I've learned a bit more. But I do think that the original Sandbag Hypertrophy program was pretty good for that. what I would do is probably, again, I know I keep saying this and it's probably getting repetitive, but focusing on the basic carries and rows and squats, if you focus on those, that's going to give you most of the muscle that you can build from sandbags. If you want to press sandbags too, that's a really good way to go also. But if it were me, just because, you know, I like calisthenics and just based on what I've experienced myself, you know, I would come in, you know, trying to set up a program, there are just so many different things you could do. It depends on how many days you want to do it. It depends on, you know, like how much time you have on each day and everything. But just saying something like a basic 3 days per week setup, you know, you could easily come in and do a couple sets of rows, a couple sets of carries, and a couple sets of squats with a sandbag, get that done in like a half hour tops. And then after that, just do 2 sets of, you know, 2 sets of pull-ups, 2 sets of some kind of horizontal pushing variation. That could be basic push-ups. That could be push-ups with your hands elevated. That could be working towards pseudo planche push-ups where you bring your hands closer to your waist to increase the difficulty that way. You could add weight to the deficit push-ups and then do 2 sets of a vertical push-up, which is like a pike push-up. You can do those with a weight vest if you have that, though you said you have a equipment restriction. So you could just do basic pike push-ups. You could work towards elevating your feet, and then that will increase the difficulty, and eventually do wall-assisted handstand push-ups. And if you do 2 sets of both of those types of push-ups to failure, in addition to the squats, the rows, and the carries, I mean, that's a program right there. Do that 3 times a week, and I think that is more than enough for aesthetics. And just as a side note, people don't often associate sandbags with aesthetics, and I think that's just so misguided. I believe sandbags will build your back especially. You know, it's going to build a lot of your body, but like your spinal erectors and your upper back and traps, I just feel like there's nothing like a sandbag or a stone or whatever, some kind of odd object for building that part of your body to just an extreme level. You know, when I started this stuff, one of the first things I noticed was that my spinal erectors started looking like cables that just went up my back and it just never went away. And now it's like, you know, my traps have grown a lot. It's, if you're looking for aesthetics and you're not if you don't care too much about, you know, like trying to get that perfect V taper or whatever. I mean, I think you can get that with sandbags, though you probably will build your core. I don't think it's going to give you a super wide waist or anything like that, but it's, you know, it's not the type of training you want to do if you're looking to have like a 26-inch waist or something like that, just because your core is going to grow. But for what I think of aesthetics, I think of that strongman look, and I think something like that is more than enough. That's my opinion, at least. Do you have any insights on that? Because I know that you do a lot of like pressing odd objects and stuff too.
First of all, when I'm done with a sandbag session, the pump that I get from that is like, it's like a light bodybuilding day. Like, I mean, like, it's, even though I've gone heavy, it's so good. I believe it's so good for aesthetics. I believe you're right. I mean, it's just the same with stones and you know, whenever I was just doing, you remember when I first started this, I was doing sandbags, stones, trail running, stuff like that, and I built a really good physique. I wasn't eating like I should, but I built a really good physique. You know, natural. It was sandbags you can really do a lot of great work with a pull up bar, dips, trail sprints, sandbags, and you can build real strength too, not just only aesthetics. I mean, you're building quality strength rather than plugging away at a gym. You know, pushing the same barbell and dumbbells. I mean, you're really building your core, like you said. You know, so if you're looking at, you know, if you want a really skinny waist, like you said, you probably want to do something different. But you know, but you can build real strength with sandbags.
Yeah.
So I know this fella, Torrington Stonekeeper. You're doing great, he says. and you're an awesome dude. Hopefully 100K coming in the future. What better, what says what better, Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter? This is a tough one, I know, he says.
First off, I gotta say, if you haven't checked out the Torrington Stonekeeper YouTube channel, you could, because it's just, he does stuff that I've never actually seen before. He'll be out there with a like a baseball bat full of like spikes and just like holding it there, and then go into a heavy lift. He's like pressing things that are on fire, and it's just so cool to see. And man, I appreciate all your support. You're the number one mad dog, right? So and I appreciate the hopes for 100K. You know, it's been slow moving from 40 to 50, but I feel like at this point we already have all the people. You know, if more people come, that's good. But like these 50,000 are like, it's the best group I could hope for. So even if it stays here forever, you know, I'm not going to be sad about it. So Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. When I was really young, I played Street Fighter on a Sega. I'm pretty sure it was Street Fighter, and it was really fun. And I have like a specific memory when I think about it. You know, just like I had a friend named Brett, and he lived across the street, and we'd like just play Sega, and then we would like actually fight each other afterwards, and it was really fun. And yeah, if you read the Sandbag Intensity book, he's actually the friend who like he would like beat the crap out of me all the time when we got really into pro wrestling. And then eventually I found out I could just like wrap my hands around him and basically body slam him and just lay on him until he gave up, because I was pretty fat and he was really skinny. So yeah, like I have good memories with that. But I have to say I played a lot more Mortal Kombat like just throughout my life. And I always thought the movies were cool, and the soundtrack. So one of my best friends growing up was actually my uncle. It's strange how it happened, but my uncle is like 2 months older than me. That's just how it worked out. So we went to school together and everything. And I have this very distinct memory of being in his he had this computer room, and it had this couch on it, and we would play the Mortal Kombat soundtrack, and we would like run around the room, and we were like in elementary school, just little kids, and we would like jump onto the couch and do like handstands and then flip off of it and like just run around. And it was like I don't know, it was just so cool. I think I would choose Mortal Kombat for that, just because I can remember running around that room with him and doing freaking couch acrobatics and stuff. It was fun.
Yeah, I think we all have a Mortal Kombat memory, especially as American kids,
Yeah.
All right. Oh, here's our friend John Imperial. Are you ever planning on branching out your training, or maybe even competing, perhaps strongman? There's a good question.
Yeah, this kind of ties into a question I answered earlier about boxing and wrestling and stuff. You know, I would very much like to, but just at this point in life, you know, it's more about work. You know, I'm pushing the sandbags as hard as I can, but the majority of my life is about trying to, you know, I'm spending most of my time trying to improve my writing and stuff like that. And so that's kind of been my focus, is becoming a better writer and things like that right now, making better videos. But, you know, sometime in the future, I'd love to get into strongman. I think I would really need to spend a good year at least trying to bring up my overhead strength, because while I am decent at, you know, pike push-ups and handstand push-ups and stuff like that, I've never been that good at overhead pressing. So I think I'd need to do that. You know, I used to be very into push press, and I have this memory back when I was back in that time when I was living in Florida for a little bit, and I was in the RV, and I had my barbells and stuff. I just train outside every day, and I had just discovered that show Vikings for the first time, and I was watching it, and it got me like so amped up that I was just pushing push presses so much because it seemed like the most badass exercise you could do. And I pushed it into my chin and I broke one of my teeth. And I can still feel that spot where it like chipped. And so after that, I haven't really done many push presses just because I've been like kind of afraid to do it, even with a mouth guard and stuff. But I'd like to get back into it. You know, I think that overhead pressing things is really cool. So yeah, I'd consider competing. I'd need some good training to bring up that specific weak point, I think, because I'm very much one of those typical skinny guys who can deadlift a good amount but can't really press much. So I'd need to work on that.
I think if you trained for it, I think you would do really, really well. Anybody wanting to get into strongman, anybody that wants to get into strongman for the first time, the main thing you need to know is you may not ever be ready. You got, but you have to train, and recovery is everything. That's like the name of the game, recovery. How to recover and how to program, how to increase in strength, progress, how to progress. But the main thing is recovery. So that's a big one. So make sure you're eating your food and sleeping. Sounds simple,
Yeah.
but dude, you gotta eat. So it's a long name. Dean McNeeman. Dean McNeeman. That's a cool name. Nice one. I'm currently training for a mountain marathon. So lots of volume and big hills. But I'm also incorporating the sandbox squats. I'm thinking it might be wiser to keep the reps lower than the 50 rep protocol, maybe 10 to 20, purely because of the high weekly volume on the legs. What do you think?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I could approach it from a couple different topics. First, I might say the opposite of what you're recommending. If you're training to run up mountains, I've done a good amount of that, and each rep is very different, or each step, I guess you could consider a rep, is very different from running on flat ground. It's almost like doing a weighted exercise when you're running up a mountain, and so you have to train your legs to both be able to go for a long time and also to be strong. And rather than the typical 50 rep protocol like I recommend with the sandbag intensity, you might even just go in the opposite direction and use something lighter and go for those higher rep sets. I know I recommend that in the program, taking the 10 rep max to 50 and also doing those higher rep sets. But for pure straight up specificity, taking something around body weight maybe that you can push upwards to a couple hundred reps, I feel like that would probably have more specific carryover to what you're doing than trying to stay within the 10 to 20 range. On the other hand, because you're already getting that volume with the running, you're already getting a lot of low to moderate intensity work for, each step is not anything like a 1 rep max or anything like that. It's still pretty low intensity, even if it is still, more than running on flat ground. Because you're getting that already, you might consider just pushing the max strength as a way to, if you increase your max strength, you're probably going to have an easier time running up that mountain just because every step will feel easier. If you can, this is something I realized with the box squats. If I can take 275 from 20 reps up to 30 reps, then 175 is going to feel much easier on each rep. So sticking to that 10 to 20 range might be smart just because, then there's not much added recovery demand, and you're also increasing max strength, which could carry over to you running up the hill. Just as a side tangent kind of, I haven't felt that my recovery has been any worse from pushing sets of 200 versus pushing sets of 20. It feels about the same to me. So if you're worried about, keeping the volume in check or keeping your recovery in check, I honestly don't think it's going to matter either way. If you take a set to failure with 20 reps, to me at least, from what I've experienced over the last 8 months, that doesn't seem to wear me down much more than taking a lighter weight to 200. It feels about the same. So I think it just depends on what you want. If you want that ultra specificity, you might consider doing higher reps. If you want to increase your max strength and kind of use this as a like a supplement to the running to maybe make it easier, you might try working with the lower reps. And you could also do both, which is pretty much what the original program recommends. So I'm not sure if that answers the question well, but those are just my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Buff Dwarf. Next question. Buff Dwarf.
Nice. That's good.
You clearly have some connection to medieval fantasy and maybe a background in nerd culture. I'm interested to see how that manifests in your life. Besides working out in the medieval clothing, do you attend LARPs and or festivals? Do you play video games, read books? And what are your favorite fantasy worlds? I would love to delve more into your inspirations on the channel. You've kind of touched on this already, but
Yeah, I feel like that's almost the same question as that one before, but it's a little different.
Yeah.
Let's see. Trying to think of how I could approach it in a different way. What are my favorite fantasy worlds? I'll focus on that part because I think that's a good one. What I like about like The Witcher, for example, is that it's like so connected to what probably actually happened. Like here, like the medieval life seems pretty similar, at least it seems like what it would be, besides the fact that there are monsters and there are witchers and mages running around and all this stuff. I feel like that's kind of cool because I can relate to it. And so I've always liked the Witcher world because it's like you get to take this setting where in normal life you'd probably just die of a disease or something, and you just get to be this badass who has a sword and is running around fighting monsters. Like if I could be a Witcher in the Witcher universe, I think that'd be pretty cool. Try to think, I don't find much. I don't get very excited about like any kind of modern thing like cyberpunk. I think that's really cool. I don't think I'd want to live there though. I'd want to live in a fantasy world where there aren't things like phones or internet or computers or anything like that. I think that would be much cooler to me. Although in The Witcher, the mages can like transport instantly from one place to another. So I guess in a way that's like a message or something. I'd probably live in the Witcher world. I mean, like the Warcraft universe, that seems pretty cool too. To just be like especially in the like Warcraft 3 days when the whole thing is just humans versus orcs basically. And so you just like train to go battle orcs and stuff. I feel like having some kind of like purpose to life like that would be kind of cool because, I think that's one of the hardest parts about how we live now is that, I mean, you can find purpose in whatever you want, but there's no real underlying thing that needs to be done. It's not like we're part of some kind of, I don't know, we don't have like a foe that we're always trying to fight. We don't have monsters that we're always trying to get. So it's like, you got to find your own way. But in something like Warcraft like that, it's like, well, you just fight the orcs. That's the thing you do. And everyone does that. And it's okay. And you don't have to worry about thinking, I kind of like that. Other fantasy worlds, I would definitely like to live in Temerant, which is the from the Kingkiller Chronicle. The Name of the Wind is the first book, and the Wise Man's Fear is the second book. And I would love to live there because it's like the perfect fantasy setting. It has a very like soft magic, so it's almost like a basic fantasy world, but there are like these tricks you can do to use magic, which I think is pretty cool. And it seems like anyone can figure out how to do it as long as your brain works in the right way. I'd like to live there. I'd probably like to live in any of them, but those are some that come to mind.
Yeah. I'd like to live in the Witcher one too. Like you said about the teleportation, it's sort of like delivering a message, but a hell of a lot cooler,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and also, you were talking about how we don't have foes to fight. Well, often the battle comes from within. Now our lives are so easy; we just kind of battle with our own selves, and
Yeah.
sort of like
That's a
the
good point.
rules that are made for us. How do you design a training routine for BJJ, rugby, Olympic, wrestling, athletic? We can answer that question, or we can skip over it, or whatever. But I feel like you already answered it, sort of.
Yeah. Just to like, um, just so you know that I'm not like trying to skip over your question, I do feel like
Yeah.
that earlier question about training for rugby or whatever. I feel like I would say the same thing. So that would be my answer. Focus on the sandbag basics. Leave yourself enough recovery so you have time for your sport specific training, and just build your base so wide with the sandbags, and that would be my answer. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Joe asks, first, I want to thank you for all your content and hard work. Your videos are amazing and they deserve so many more views and likes. Because of you, I just recently purchased a 100-pound bag and a 200-pound bag, and it's very humbling knowing where I am for my strength. I'm 6'2", 250 pounds, and I struggle getting more than 2 or 3 reps with a 200-pound bag. Pretty shitty, lol. My question is for you, buddy. It's hard. Don't feel bad. My question is for you. How should I progress with these bags? The 100-pound bag feels great. I do a lot of overhead presses and it feels perfect. Then I attempt the 200-pound bag, and it's like my mind goes into worried mode, and my lower back goes, "You're not that guy." Uh-huh. Anyways, appreciate everything you do. Cheers from Florida.
Yeah, well, first off, Joe, I think you are that guy, and I think that you just have to accept it. You're already doing it. Most people can't press a 100-pound sandbag, and so I'm assuming that your goal is pressing them. Um, Going from pressing a 100-pound sandbag to pressing a 200-pound sandbag is a very big jump. So it kind of depends. I don't know if you could build the strength to press a 200-pound sandbag with just a 100-pound sandbag. You could push for some pretty high volume, but in my opinion, you might need kind of a middleweight, or possibly a few middleweights. Even jumping from pressing a 100-pound sandbag to a 150-pound sandbag, and jumping from 150 to 200, those are very big jumps. Like with barbells, you might get a 2.5 pound increase in strength after a month of training when you're getting over body weight. And so to try to jump from 100 to 200, I think that's kind of a big jump. But as far as, it says, mine goes to worried mode and my lower back goes, "You're not that guy." So I would say, first of all, make sure that you have a very solid understanding of breathing and bracing, which you might be able to get away with not doing it right when you're pressing 100 pounds, maybe. So if you haven't seen it, I always send people here. I recommend checking out the Brian Alsrew video. It's like my #1 breathing tip revisited or something like that. He goes into great detail on how to make sure you're breathing right. Basically, if the example he gives is, if you picture a soda can and say that can is completely, the tab is still like locked in or whatever, and it's full of soda. You can put plates on top of that. You could put like 30 pounds, 50 pounds or whatever, and the soda can stays solid. It doesn't break. Whereas if you open the can, and whether you take the soda out or not, once that's open, you start stacking plates and it crushes after like 20 pounds. And so if you think of your body as that soda can, you take that deep breath, fill it with as much air as you can, which would be, the soda, and then you brace, you tighten everything down. It's like you become that unbreakable can of soda, I guess. So that would be my first recommendation, would be to make sure you understand the Valsalva maneuver, how to breathe and brace and everything. After that, let's see. It says you struggle getting more than 2 to 3 reps with a 200-pound sandbag. So maybe I've been missing the point the whole time. If you can already press that for 2 to 3 reps, then that's pretty impressive, you know, if you're talking about pressing. And at that point, you just keep going as you are, and the reps will improve over time. It'll just take some time. If you're talking about like the sandbag to shoulder, that makes sense. I guess my main recommendation, if building up volume with 100 will carry over to 200 to a certain extent, but if you're really struggling with 200, my recommendation would probably be to get like a 175, 150 and work at building some volume with that. So I think that's going to carry over more. At a certain point, there's only so much you can do with 100 pounds if you're trying to move to truly heavy weights. But the fact that you can already do a few with 200 is a good sign that, you know, you have a lot of strength potential. And like I said, you are that guy. So just keep going. The strength will come. It just takes time.
I would like to add that when you're doing this, you got to move with intention, like deliberate. Run that pressing, just like you said. Brace. Take that 100-pound bag, and make every movement deliberate, and keep in mind what you're doing. Like take note of every part of that press. But also, one thing that really helped my overhead pressing was accessories with like push-ups and odd object pressing. And if you have some extra stones or something laying around, or just anything heavy that weighs between 100 to 200 or even 50 pounds, and you can get reps in it, I would suggest that also. But move with it, like really dedicate to what you're doing when you're doing an overhead press. Your mind does tend to wander, and you say things like, "Oh, I can't do this." Well, if you try to push that out as much as possible and move with intent, and that takes just doing those reps over and over and over again, gaining confidence in the movement. I just wanted to add that.
That's if I was going to take advice from anyone on pressing overhead, I think it'd be you. So I hope, Joe, that you'll take that advice to heart, because Bryce is a very strong presser. So
thank you. This James Wilson, DFD, just curious if you do any martial arts or combat training, mil sim or anything like that.
Do you know what mil sim is?
Military simulation, maybe.
Oh, okay, that sounds really cool. I also what's up, James? I appreciate all your comments on the videos, and it's been cool that you've been uploading videos recently too. You're showing that it can be done, and you're putting in the work. So martial arts, when I was younger, I was in Taekwondo, and I got up to a red belt, which is I'm not sure if it is based on different schools. I was kind of young when I was doing it. I know some have the red belt with the black stripe in the middle and then black. Some go straight from red to black. I could be wrong on that. So I got pretty far with it, and I really liked it. I did a lot of competitions. I went to this big statewide competition a few times, and for the Sandbag intensity book, I was actually trying to add this in, but I could not figure out how to finish the story. But I guess I could tell it here. There was this kid. So when I went into Taekwondo, I was just destroying everyone at sparring because, as I mentioned earlier, there was that young kid that I had done like professional wrestling against for all this time. So I had like this base of just knowing what it feels like to get punched and being okay with that, and like not running away, So in my local Taekwondo, I just owned everyone in sparring, and I thought it was so fun. And so I never practiced that much because like outside of actual sessions, I never practiced that much because I didn't need to. Well, I went to this big statewide tournament and, I did pretty well and I got pretty far. And then there was this kid I was up against, and he, I swear he looked just like a young Johnny Lawrence, kind of an old reference. That's the guy from Karate Kid, the Cobra Kai, the main antagonist who was actually maybe the protagonist in the end. But he had the headband on and everything. And I remember I walked up just kind of sure of myself, and then he starts screaming. Like he just had this rage in him. And then his coach started screaming also. And then he had this little fan base behind him, and they also started screaming. And before the match even started, I was like, whoa, I've never seen something like this. And he was just like, he was jumping around, and he freaking, in that first round, he knocked me down 3 times, which, in our age group, you couldn't kick to the head or anything like that. So it was like push kicks to the stomach or whatever. We had like gear on. He knocked me over 3 times. And if you get knocked down 3 times, that's it. So I lost just like that right away. And after that, I was like, this is something else. I'm not actually that good. And that was kind of the thing that led to me practicing Taekwondo a bunch. I got my own punching bag for the basement, and I made like an agility ladder drill out of tape, like on the floor. So it's like a bunch of squares so you can like run through it and stuff, focus on your agility. And I trained like really hard that year. And that was, I went up a couple ranks, and, I came back and he was there again. And, I was much better, but he was also much better. And I was ready for the match this time. And it was me and him, and I think it was the semifinals, whatever the one right before the final match is. And my first couple matches, I just like did really well against the other people because I had been trying so hard. But when it came time for him, he had the headband again, and he was just like screaming and everything. This time I screamed because I was ready for it. So like we were more evenly matched, And I thought it was going to be my redemption arc and all this. So went in there, we fought. He was obviously still much better than me. But I made it to the end. There was no like 3 KOs or anything like that. In the end, he ended up winning because he was just better. His kicks like felt so hard on me. It was like he had this power and this rage in him. And it wasn't like that. It wasn't that like unbridled adolescent rage. It was like he somehow had managed to control it, which is the scariest thing. You have that, but you can also control it. But I made it to the end with him. And after that, I felt kind of defeated. I was like, maybe I'll just focus more on soccer, which I actually ended up doing anyway. But after that, I remember I was sitting there, and there was like a cafeteria. This was it was like a giant, I don't know what, it was a giant building with a bunch of stuff. I was sitting there like feeling kind of sad that I lost and everything. And then he walked up to me with his coach. And he said something like, that was sweet, which that's how we talked back then when you're like a little kid back in the whenever. He said, that was sweet. And then the coach was like, if you're ever in the area, come train with us because he needs someone who can go 3 rounds with him or whatever. And that was like, I realized that the respect you get for like a job well done was equally as important as actually winning, and like that. It made the whole thing worth it. And that was, it's, yeah, that's one of my favorite stories I have. But I haven't been doing much martial arts lately, but I used to. And, I could still throw a kick if I want to, though I might need to work on my mobility to do those jumping wheel kicks above my head again,
That's a really cool story, man. Discipline and carrying yourself well, and like whenever we used to play chess or any other game, it's like we would say this is a gentleman's game. So you carry yourself like a gentleman, but you're also like a warrior. You bring that intensity, but you control it.
Yeah.
You carry yourself well, and you're putting an example on for others, and you that was a really cool story, man.
Oh, thank you.
This may we've sort of already answered this, but Mitch Owen, 8136, how do you know when to progress up in weight with sandbags?
Yeah, it kind of comes down to how you train. If you do the sandbag to shoulder, a very easy way to know is if you can do 15 per shoulder, pretty easy. That's a good time to move up. Even if you can do 10 per shoulder in a workout, I'd say you could move up if you wanted to. But yeah, I usually judge it by carries or shoulders. If you can do 10 to 15 at least per shoulder in a given workout, you can move up. If you can carry it for, a minute and a half to 2 minutes, that's a good sign. And like I said earlier, just you're not going to want to jump up. You're going to feel like it's not time to, but it probably is. You'll probably know when it's time. If you can start hitting those numbers, it won't feel like it is, but it is. So try to make yourself move up when you're ready.
Good advice. Pacey Salesy. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name here. It's probably something completely different than what I just said. Pacey Salesy 8287. Congrats. What's your favorite thing? What's your favorite thing about your channel?
Favorite thing about the channel? About the channel itself, I'd have to say it's when I'm able to. There are certain moments in my scripts, because I write everything out before I record it, because I'm trying to make everything as good as I can, and I feel like I'm much better at writing than I am at talking. It's just how it is for me. I'm trying to work on that, but when I can write something where I have this feeling like maybe this is a little bit too much. I kind of felt that in my recent box squat video. I basically said that strength endurance was the will to fight death. And like, when I just say that out of context, it's like, that's sort of an extreme thing to say. Like, what are you talking about? But when I'm able to be kind of poetic like that, and people hear it and they're like, man, that's badass. That's probably my favorite. There have been some times that I've hit and miss, I think, or maybe I went a little bit too far, and it's, it's just like, oh, he's just doing that thing again. But when I can do it just right, that's probably my favorite part, is writing something that I think is just so cool, and then having someone else be like, yeah, that was cool. Because information writing is, I enjoy writing information, but you kind of get to a different place when you're writing something that is a bit more abstract like that. And so that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good aspect. Ring Burner 3611 wants to know, pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
What's up, man? That's a OG right there. I don't not like it, but I only let myself have pizza every so often. And if I'm gonna have pizza like once in a couple months, I'm not gonna put pineapple on it, because I feel like it's better without it. If I was eating pizza every day, I might add it to mix it up. But if I'm gonna have it, it's gonna be like double cheese, well done, with maybe pepperoni or something like that. That's probably what I would go for, with like way too much ranch added, and like all of the Parmesan poured on top. That would be my way.
My favorite pizza is double cheese pepperoni, dude. That's my absolute favorite.
Yeah, it's good.
Albine TV Bjorn wants to know, he says, excuse me, new achievement unlocked. What muscles other than the back do you think benefits from daily training? The core and forearms probably recover the fastest, but what makes the back handle so much high frequency?
That's a good question, and kind of I'm gonna say from the start, I don't know if I have like the answer to this. I can give what I think, but it's hard to say for sure. But first, thank you for the new achievement, 50K. That's awesome. It's like I get that notification on the video game, like new achievement. That's cool. But what muscles other than the back? The first question. I think you could probably do it with any part of the body. You'd have to be very careful with like with your volume and everything. I guess your question is what benefits from it. The back seems to benefit very well, just because it can take so much. I think you're right about the core and the forearms. Like, you see mechanics with massive forearms just from turning a wrench all day. And the core, I mean, every second that you're not laying down, your core is doing something. So I think you're probably pretty on with that. You could probably say the calves too, I bet. But what makes the back handle such high frequency? It's a good question, and I've thought a lot about it, but the main thing that comes to mind for me after doing it for so long is that the back training seems to be restorative, whereas training the front maybe isn't quite so restorative. So if you only do bench press, that is eventually going to give you an internally rotated shoulder posture. It's and because your back is weak, it's like you'll feel unbalanced. It's going to mess up your posture. Whereas if you only did back, that's only going to improve your posture. That's only going to improve you. And so I feel like the fact that the back specifically adds to the body, and the more you do it, the more it adds to you. Whereas training, the chest or something, there is a limit to how much that's going to add to you, and eventually it'll start taking away. That's how it feels to me, at least. So I feel like that at the base of things is the reason, just because, recovery demand aside, the back can handle a crazy amount of volume. I don't know why it can handle so much. It can, but just the fact that every single day, if you're training your back, you're improving your posture, you're offsetting any pressing you did, the back is where a lot of your strength comes from, just for any type of full body movement. So that would be my answer, is just because it adds to the body rather than taking away. And like I said, I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's what I came up with.
That's great. So Corvid asks, if enough people could be gathered in one place to make it financially viable, would you ever consider running an in-person Sandbag workshop classes like Mark Wildman and Mitch Hooper?
Yeah, I would do that. I would love to. I'd love to train people in person with Sandbags. I have it's just so much easier in person, like doing it online, it works, but especially with Sandbags, I feel like there are so many little nuances that you can pick up on when you can actually see someone doing it. I'd definitely do that if I could.
Raven Renalius. First of all, thank you for the hard work, man. Keep it up. Question: if you were to make a scale with Sandbag strength, what Sandbag weight would be below average, above average strength for an average person?
Yeah. For an average person, I think that this is where people run into trouble, because an average person is probably going to struggle to even pick up like 75 pounds, just because the average person is very out of shape and doesn't train at all. But if we're looking at like the average lifter, or just even disregarding that part, what would make below average, average, and above average? I would say if you can carry a bodyweight sandbag for a good minute to a minute and a half, I'd say that's a good average place to be. And I know that's going to be more difficult for a lot of people. If you're 250, carrying a 250 pound sandbag for a minute and a half is probably going to be harder than being 160 and carrying a 160 pound sandbag for a minute and a half. But I would say that's a pretty good gauge. I'd say somewhere in that 1.5 to 2 minute range. Maybe if you're lighter, going all the way up to 2 minutes. If you're a bit heavier, maybe making it to a minute and a half. Maybe even all the way down to a minute if you're very heavy. If you're creeping up on 300, carrying a 300 pound sandbag for a minute is pretty good. I would say that's a good average thing. Something that I've noticed for a lot of people is that getting to 100 pounds, somewhere between like 75 to 100 pounds above body weight to shoulder, seems to be that point when things start to get really difficult. That's sort of what I noticed for myself, and I've seen that with a lot of people. And I'm not sure if you can comment on that, but that's when it's like, okay, it's going to take me a long time to go any further than this because this is challenging. I'd say that's like late intermediate stage. If you can throw, 75 to 100. And again, if you're like 300 pounds, then it might be a little bit lower than that because it depends on body weight. It's all relative. But just from what I've seen for people who are, just the average person who probably weighs, 200 pounds, give or take a little bit, I'd say getting to something around 100 pounds, maybe 75 pounds above body weight to shoulder is getting into that advanced territory. I wonder what you would have to say on that.
Well, typically with strongman, we're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. And if I do any sort of volume, as far as heavy carries go or anything like that, I'll go lighter. Just like 150, 200 pounds to failure. I weigh 275 right now. And if I had to carry I had a competition where I had to carry a 300-pound sandbag. I want to get it done. So I'm more likely moving faster, just getting it done with, getting it over with. So I don't know how a 275 sandbag would feel for a minute and a half. That would be a
feel
big
hard.
Yeah. Maybe I should try that in the future. That's a new challenge.
That's a long way to go with that.
That's a good question. That's good. Okay, Mr. D Feed. Thanks, Cody, for the inspiring content. I'm in week 2 of the 50 squat program. Question. After you failed your bulk attempt during which you drank 1.5 gallons of milk every day, what did you approach how did you approach your nutrition now? Do you still try to get a lot of protein, or do you just let it take care of itself through a regular diet?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm glad that you're running the program. That's so cool. I really want to hear how it works for other people because for me, it's just been so effective. It's like I don't know. It's almost like it works too good, and I'm not trying to hype it up, but it just seems like it shouldn't work as well as it has, and it just has. So I hope that it works as well as for you as it has for me. Yeah, that 1.5 gallons of milk thing, that was so stupid. Like I saw all the people around me were like giving me these weird looks as I was getting noticeably fatter on a daily basis. It was just like, why did I do that? I thought it was gonna work. So now I honestly, for the last, I don't know how many years, it's been a while. I don't honestly think about it. I eat the same things pretty much every day. I am planning on having a full day of eating coming out soon. But I don't honestly know what my macros are or what my calories are. I just know that if I eat this amount of these things, I will stay the same. If I eat a little bit more of them, I will grow. And if I eat a little bit less, I will lose. That's just sort of how I gauge it. If I eat 2 meals a day, it's likely that I'm going to lose for a little while, and then I will eventually, like where I'm at right now, at the top of a bulk pretty much. If I eat 2 meals a day, I'll probably lose weight for a while, and then I'll start maintaining. If I eat 3 meals right now in this bulk state, I will maintain. If I eat 4 meals, I'll keep going up. And when I'm really shredded, if I eat, I just might eat less with those 2 meals, but it's all intuitive. I spent so long worrying about all the little things that you were told to worry about when you first start lifting, like when to get your protein within a certain window after working out, or how many macros you're supposed to get, or all of these things. And I feel like the stress from that outweighs any potential benefit you could get from optimizing every little thing. I don't have enough mental space left after all the things that I'm doing to also worry about nutrition. So I just eat, I just eat good foods that I think are healthy for the most part. I might have some like mayonnaise on a sandwich. There are little things that aren't that good, but for the most part, I just eat healthy food and it just takes care of itself.
Yeah, I don't count my macros either, but if I'm eating healthy food, if I'm eating real food, I feel much better. I eat 6,
just the food.
If I don't eat 6 eggs, 2 pieces of toast, and 2 packs of oatmeal, every morning with my coffee. I feel it by, I have to eat a lot though, but I just know I have to eat real food. Like if I go get, a sandwich
Yeah.
somewhere, it'll show up in your workout.
Yeah. It's funny because I've had pretty much the same breakfast for the last 10 years, maybe almost every single day. And it's it's basically just like cereal with fruit in it. It's just like milk and protein powder and like a bunch of fruit. And and I eat it that way. Recently, I haven't been feeling as excited about it just because I just don't have much of an appetite. So I've just been blending it up as a shake. But if I don't eat that, I just feel like off the rest of the day. It's like starting with that the fruit and the protein and the milk and everything, like that's just what my body likes to have. And so if I don't start with that, even if I eat something else good like eggs and bacon or whatever and toast or I don't know, whatever else, I just feel like lethargic. For me at least, it's like the fruit and the milk. That's how I like to start my days.
Yeah, especially the fruit. I use fruit for intra workouts. Like I will stop because I mean
Yeah.
some of my sessions are, especially if I'm doing event training, it's like 3.5 hours long sometimes. And I will eat
Yeah.
apples. Like apples are my favorite. Apples, bananas,
Yeah.
maybe a peanut butter sandwich. But fruit is so good for energy.
Yeah. Yeah, it just
Sustainable energy.
works.
Yeah.
My favorite is frozen blueberries. That's what I usually have the most of.
That's good, yeah. You ever eat any yogurt? I eat a lot of yogurt.
I I used to I used to eat a bunch of Greek yogurt. That was like one of my favorite things. I used to make this it would be my breakfast. It was kind of the thing I had before I started this cereal, but I would have the Greek yogurt and I would put like protein powder and then pumpkin, like just raw pumpkin from the can. And then I'd add like cocoa powder and sometimes I would add something for some substance like raisins or whatever. And then you put it in the fridge overnight and the next morning it's like ice cream kind of. And I would eat that like every morning. It was good.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but it's been a while.
Um, TM521HS. This is a robot, apparently. In your video about mental LARPing, you mentioned how trying to be like a character from book, game, etc., can give training a deeper purpose. Do you have a character like that?
That's a good question. I've gone through phases of having different ones. Like, for me at least, it's never really a specific character like a like I'm not trying to be Bjorn Ironside from Vikings or something like that, but I might want to be a Viking, It's not necessarily Geralt, but it's I might want to try to embody like being a Witcher, stuff like that. I think it helps so much having something like that, and it changes. I'd say usually it's like some kind of Witcher, just because I think they're so cool, and that's just like the most recent uh fantasy book that I've really got into. I like Witchers because like they're big and strong, but they're also everything else. When I was growing up, I was never super into being the super strong guy. Like when I'd play a video game, I would choose like the stealth character, the lean, the Brad Pitt type of guy from Fight Club or whatever. It was never the Conan, the barbarian style that I was looking for. And so what I like about Witchers, which I think that's cool now, like I think it's badass now, but Witchers are like strong and muscular, but they're also agile and quick, and I like that. So that's something that I think about. Be like, yeah, it'd be cool to train to be like a Witcher, something like that. Trying to think there are other aspects of life too that I think that applies to as well, because like say that book I mentioned, the King Killer Chronicle, the main character Kvothe, he's just very he's cunning. And, you know, going through life, I can think about how it would be cool to be a bit more like that. And so maybe I'd like to be a bit like him in that way. And so I feel like there are different versions of that for different parts of life, and a lot of these things are kind of one dimensional. So it's like, yeah, the Viking warrior for training, that's cool, but do I want to be the Viking warrior when I'm sitting around, you know, or when I'm writing things? Maybe not. And so it kind of jumps around, and yeah, so I don't know if that's a good answer, but there are a few that I like, and I'd say for the most part it's like being some kind of witcher or something is cool. And I will say I used to think that being in the school of the wolf would be the coolest, and I still do think that. But with the high rep box squats, I feel like I've been embodying the bear school a bit more, just because I can picture them trudging through waist deep snow, going up the mountain to hunt like some kind of giant bear, and that's sort of what it feels like to do those box squats, I think. So
That's cool. Yeah, I think witchers are the coolest too, man. One thing I like to do is to think about, you know, all of us, no matter what culture you come from, it's we have ancestors that built everything that we see in front of us. I mean, even ourselves, you know, we have so much of like our ancestors' blood in us. You know, whether you're white, black, Christian, Muslim, it doesn't matter. You have these ancestors that did all these incredible things. I like to think that they're like, you like to pretend that they're like watching you. You know what I mean? Like, and how you
yeah,
carry yourself. And when you're doing things like taking care of your family and or doing strength, you know, doing stone lifting and all that, that, you know, it's making them happy.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Terabasi. Terabasid. Him out. All right, Tara. Congratulations on the 50K. Milestone boss. You deserve all of it. You're the kindest person on the platform and replied to all questions, comments, regardless of this Q&A video. But I wanted to ask you this. If you had to build the entire yoke region, a huge 18 to 20-inch neck, mountain-sized upper trap, strongman upper back, deep cord-like spinal erectors, gnarly 3D delts, and big upper chest, using only bodyweight calisthenics training, equipment, pull-up, dip bars, gymnastic rings, climbing ropes. Basically, the rule is you can only use your body weight as resistance, no extreme load at all, no matter how light. How would you go about building each of these muscle groups to get that intimidating yoked look of power with only body weight training? Also, how far do you think someone can go in terms of size of muscle using only body weight compared to someone using external things, such as sandbags, stones, barbells, etc.? And how will body fat percentage and weight affect the look? Thank you and congratulations again.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I remember my favorite videos back in like early Alpha Destiny days would be when he would talk about getting yoked with calisthenics, just because it's such an exciting concept. So first, just thank you for the congratulations. The main thing I have to say is I do not believe, just this is my experience, I don't believe you can get to a similar level of yokedness with just body weight as you could to lifting heavy weights. So one of the things, and I'll answer your question because I think you can get pretty far. But one of the things I liked about the yoked look in particular, that strong upper back, those spinal erectors like cables, you know, the traps and everything, is that I feel like it's very hard to fake it. It's very rare to see someone who is in the gym pumping away at machines that actually has that true strongman look. There's a strongman look you only really get by doing the things that strongmen do. And I like that about it because it's one of the only parts of the body, in my opinion, that it's hard to fake. You know, there's like I've said this before a few times, but there's like a cohesiveness you get to your back specifically that, like, every little individual muscle, while it does stand out, there's like that in between space that just gets connects everything together and gives it this specific look that I just don't think you get it unless you're moving heavy, awkward objects. That's my opinion. And maybe someone can, but I feel like with a lot of calisthenics guys, for looking yoked, there's just a little something missing. And often it's the spinal erectors specifically because they thrive on heavy weight. That's, the erectors are keeping your, it's keeping your spine stable when you're moving heavy weight. And you can do body weight, like reverse hypers off of a picnic table or whatever like that. It's going to give you some size. And the low back does contribute to a lot of things, but to truly look yoked, in my opinion, there's got to be some heavy lifting. But to say like how far could you get? I think you could get pretty far. In terms of building an 18 to 20 inch neck, the first thing I'll say is, yes, you could get there with body weight bridging, like neck bridging and stuff like that. But the problem is that's a very advanced way of training the neck. So the main issue I see with it is that you need to focus on regressions for a very long time before you could get to those full neck exercises, like the full bridge and the full, I don't know what the name for the curl is when you're doing like neck bridging and stuff. So I think you could definitely get a huge neck with just body weight. That is one area, but you'll want to take it slow and resist the urge to try those advanced variations for a very long time because they are very advanced. Supporting your entire body weight with your head and then also moving. It's one thing to do an isometric, but to move, that's tough. So that's my warning. I think you can get an 18 to 20 inch neck with bridging and stuff, but just take it slow. For the rest of everything else, I think your main focus should probably be on wall assisted handstand push-ups. Start with pike push-ups, get stronger until you can do those wall assisted handstand push-ups with your stomach facing the wall. Get to that and just try to increase reps over time because that will build the traps, that'll build the shoulders, that'll build the upper chest, that will build the upper back to an extent. It's going to strengthen your core a bit, especially when you have your wall or your stomach against the wall because you have to maintain that like semi almost hollow body position, not quite hollow body, but you still have to engage your core. That would be the main thing I would do, would be focusing on that. I think an often neglected part of that yoked look is the lats. So if you have a pull-up bar, I would also try to get very strong at as many different pull-up variations as you can just to get that width, because I've seen people who look yoked but don't have much width in their back, and it doesn't look nearly as cool. It's like when you see Dorian Yates, he's so wide in addition to also, looking like pretty big, and he moved some heavy weight to get that too. It just looks cool, So I would focus on the pull-ups too. Dip bars, something strange about dips is if I go heavy on them and I haven't for a while, like my mid back will get really sore. So there is some stabilizing going on there. Though I don't know if that's going to get you like actually yoked. You mentioned climbing ropes. I could see that helping a lot too. And that's going to build the forearms, which is another aspect to being yoked, I think, that isn't talked about, because if you have like this massive back and these little forearms, it's going to look funny. But so trying to get the whole package. So I think you can get pretty far. I guess my main advice would be, if you're just going to do body weight, I would focus on building like a well-rounded, balanced physique. Just try to build everything. And then later on, if you want to specialize, it's not going to take very long to go from like pretty well developed everywhere to specializing and getting yoked. If you just start lifting some sandbags for a little bit or something, that would be my advice. Is there any other questions? Body fat percentage and stuff. You'd probably want to go on a bulk. That's if you just stay very light and work on calisthenics, it's not going to do the same thing. That's been my experience. If you can get your body weight up a bit higher and then focus on, handstand push-ups and stuff, I think that's going to do a lot more, because it's almost like lifting heavy weights, So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I know there's a lot to it, but I think you can get pretty close.
Yeah, I think dips too. Some dips. Yeah. Dips will help
Yeah.
put
Yeah. Dips.
put on some good.
Yeah. Yeah. Dips are so good. Like I'll always remember this, to quote him again, there was a Alex Leonidas quote. He said something like, if I don't do dips for a while and then I come back to them and do them, it's like my chest looks different the next day just after doing them for the first time in a while. And I could be completely wrong. It might have been someone else. So don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was him that said that. And, I feel that too. Like if I don't do dips for a while and I come back to them, yeah, you just notice something different about the way you look.
Yeah. I like that you added nutrition in there too, because you definitely want to eat. If you're if you're getting yoked, you gotta eat. You know, especially if you're a
Yeah.
tall guy. If you're a tall guy, you want to eat a lot.
Yeah.
uh, so organized wants to know: do you even train, bro?
Sometimes I wonder that myself, but I think so. I'm pretty sure that I train, but it's also possible that I've just been like in this constant state of blacking out, and when I go down to the basement to work out, what I've actually been doing is just like laying in my bed, and I forget that that's what I was doing, and so there's always that possibility. But I'm pretty sure that I'm training.
Yeah, yeah, it could all just be a dream, man. uh, Here we go. Get the CPT. How would you suggest using sandbags as part of a typical barbell program?
My first recommendation is to just start working with bear hug carries and shoulder carries if you want to, but at least barbell or at least bear hug carries. So it's and my reasoning for this is almost a little bit deceptive, because I think if you start working with those, you're going to slowly realize how fun it is, and you're probably going to replace most of your training with sandbags because it's just so cool. So for me, like what I did is I started, and on my leg days, twice a week, I would just lower the volume a little bit on like my squats, maybe because I used to like doing I'd go for a max effort attempt. I like to do the conjugate style, so I would do a max effort squat variation every week, drop down to 60 to 70% and do something like 10 sets of 3 or something like that. I would just do like 5 sets instead, and then at the end of the workout, just do 2 or 3 sets of carries, just as far as I felt like I could go. And that seemed to supercharge the program. It was like everything else I was doing that was working okay before just suddenly started working like way better. I mean, I guess I can't say it was working because I was plateaued, but it had worked like in the past before I was plateaued. But adding the bear hug carries, it like makes everything better. And then ideally you start to realize, hey, it's pretty fun to pick this thing up. Maybe I'm going to try shouldering it a few times. And you realize shouldering it's pretty fun. And then before you know it, you're like 50-50. And then if you're like me, you just go all in on sandbags because they're so fun. Then you start lifting stones because stones are like sandbags but different, but it still hits in that same place. And then before you know it, you have this whole new training style. But one other thing I can say, this was my original recommendation a long time ago, and I think it still holds true, is to, at the end of a lower body day, and I say lower body just because it's convenient that your legs are already warmed up. And for me, at least, I have to spend a long time warming up my legs and stuff. So just give yourself like 10 or 15 minutes to play. Just like do whatever you can think of. Like the sandbags on the ground. Oh, I'll just see how many different ways I can pick it up. That's cool. And then you're like, oh, if I pick it up this way, it ends up in this position on the lap. And now that's kind of cool. If it's in this position, now I can lift it this way. And maybe you try to lift it to your shoulder a few different ways. Maybe you saw some kind of strongman event where they were running back and forth. So you pick your sandbag up, run to the other side of the yard, drop it, and then run back and get it again and run back. Just have fun for like 15 minutes. And that kind of gets gets you hooked on it. And after that, you know, it's just a matter of time. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, sandbags are so much fun. Well, the heavy carry, that's where it started with me. I would do like a
Yeah, same.
calisthenics thing, and I would do the heavy carry still failure. And I started putting on all this mass, all this quality muscle and endurance, and I was like, oh man, this is fun.
Yeah, that's how it went for me too.
um I like this person, and I really like this person. This person always comments on my videos. Penem
Yeah.
Brameen. Would you ever hit a complex with a sandbag? Something like throw and catch on the right, row and catch on the left, 2 high pulls, then 2 rolls. Only lifters and athletes do short complexes like this, and it seems to work well for them.
Yeah, I would do that. You know, if I'm being completely honest, I feel like the reason I haven't done that more is because I'm lazy. And I mean, I know that's funny coming from someone who just hit a set of 500 squats, but I feel like it's so much harder to do a complex than to just do one exercise. Like the calisthenic circuits, they are 1,000 times harder than just doing a basic set, you know, of a calisthenics exercise. So I think the main reason I haven't really done it is just because I know how hard it's going to be. And so I just haven't, but I could see myself doing that in the future. And, yeah, if it'll give me leg size, anything like what you have, Penem Brahmine, I know you told me how to say that, but I forgot. Then I would definitely do them because you have massive legs. So yeah.
Corbin wants to know when your birthday is.
Oh, it's in September.
Constable Kohler, has your diet changed to assist the strength endurance work? I would imagine that carbs play pretty heavy in it, but I'd be curious as to the general dietary guidelines you follow.
Yeah, the main change I've seen really is just in the main change I've seen is just he's got these sharp claws because he won't let anyone trim his nails, and so but yeah, the main change I've seen is just the quantity. I haven't really changed anything. I eat a pretty high carb diet, I would say. Like one of my main meals is just a can of beans and a tortilla, and I like that. I've just felt like I wanted to eat more, especially the day after those high rep box squats. And also, I try to force myself to like the night before I'm going to go for a really big set. I might try to have like pasta or something like that instead of something lighter, just because I know I do feel a difference if I really carb up the night before. So yeah, I haven't made that much of a change. It's just maybe the quantity has gone up a bit.
There's a strong man, Bryce Young, really strong dude. He gave me a tip the night before a competition, eat an entire box of cereal. Like the small boxes, eat a whole box.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay. Hey, Jables, he's got a serious question for you. How do you find pants that fit your legs as they get thicker? I have ripped so many jeans just walking up and stairs fast. I'm not even very big. They're all too tight around the thighs. I'm sure what he's going to say. Well, I tell you, man, I go through this too, dude, and I wear sweatpants. I wear stretchy jeans or sweatpants.
Yeah, when I'm at home, I usually do wear sweatpants. Hey, buddy, you go. I wear sweatpants because it's just more comfortable, I'd say, like when I'm at home. But as far as jeans, I just buy like 5 or 6 pant sizes too big, and so like waist sizes. So I could easily fit into a 30. Maybe right now I might be a little bigger. When I'm super shredded, I can fit into a 28 waist, but I'll buy 36 and then just wear a belt. And I still don't have very much mobility, but they don't rip on me very much. So that's been my, I like to get the basic Dickies Carpenter Duck work pants. Those have been, because they have a reinforced like seam like in the crotch or whatever. And so that's, I haven't ripped any since I started wearing these. Although I will say if I tried to squat or something, I probably would rip them. It's not a very fun existence walking around when you know you can't actually move. So I would also like an answer to that question that's maybe a bit better. So I don't know.
All right, so there were just a few questions that we didn't have time for. First, I just want to say thank you so much for doing this, Bryce, Unknown Strongman. We spent a good 3.5 hours straight just getting all these questions done. That's a huge time investment, so I really appreciate it. If you're still watching this, please go check out the Unknown Strongman channel. He's got a lot of great stuff on there, and we should have an interview coming out on his channel at some point too, so keep an eye out for that. So once again, just thank you for doing this. But also there were a few questions that we didn't get to, and I want to make sure I don't miss any. I appreciate you guys asking these. This has been really fun. So getting straight into it. How long did it take you to incorporate daily training and adapt to it? How can I implement this and still make strength improvements if I fast with no food 2 days per week? Well, first I'll say for me, it was pretty easy to adapt to it. I had already been training for many years and I had already been using a pretty high volume setup. So it was kind of just a natural thing. At the start there were a few times when I pushed just a bit too far with the volume and the intensity, and I think I was pushing into that overtraining territory. But for the most part, it went pretty well. That would be my main recommendation. Make sure you set up your training in a way that makes sense. The way that worked for me is I had 2 or 3 days a week that I would go hard and heavy, and then I had another 2 or 3 days a week where I would do calisthenic circuits, and that was, that the intensity is pretty high, but it's also just body weight exercises, and I feel like that didn't wear me down in the same way as loading my body with heavy weights did. And then I would also have a couple days where I did grease in the groove style stuff. As far as fasting, I don't think that should impact it too much. I've heard from many people that during their fasts, they're still able to train heavy and it's fine. I haven't really tried that, but what I can say is if you were thinking of using a greasing the groove style approach on some of your days, that would probably be the day to do it, or those would be the days to do it. So on those fasting days, you might consider just coming in and, if I don't know which muscles you want to train, if you're training full body every day or whatever, but you might consider just doing some grease in the groove style stuff. If you can do 10 pull-ups, just do a set of 5 every couple hours whenever you pass the pull-up bar. Same could be said for dips or push-ups or whatever else. And I think that'll be a great way to do it, to continue making strength gains. And I think you'll be fine. Just make sure to bring the intensity in your training. Push yourself to do more than you did last time every time, and you should be good to go. So the next, there were a couple more questions asked by Corvid. Here it is. Didn't mean to miss these earlier. So this is the second one he asked. What was your favorite weapon in RuneScape and why? Also, what mining level were you? I loved mining. And also, do you have a quote from RuneScape that stands out to you? Mine was either the random event wizard who screamed, "Ha, go eat cabbage, amateur," at you, and the chap with the wayward pet monkey who, when asked if the monkey belonged to him, responded very bluntly, "He's not my monkey, he's his own damn monkey. He does exactly as he pleases." I have some very fond memories of playing RuneScape, but I was also pretty young, so I can't really remember anything specific other than I remember sitting there on my computer, mining for ore, talking with my friend Kurt over the internet with whatever kind of, I don't know if you could talk in the game or if we were using like some kind of separate messaging thing or whatever, but that's mostly what I remember. But I vaguely remember liking the sword weapon. I thought that was pretty cool. And also, I forgot that there were those guys running around saying stuff, but now that you say it, it sparks something like, oh, I kind of remember that. And those specific quotes, I feel like if I went back to the game and just walked around, I would remember so much, but it was just so long ago. That was one of the first MMOs I ever played. I think when I was younger, there were a few random ones like Toontown. That was a cool one for a while where you fought the cogs in the machine. Kind of funny. I wonder how that influenced my view on things as I got older. But RuneScape, that was the first one I really got into, I think, and that kind of led to me realizing it's way more fun to play online sometimes than just playing alone. So I think that, after that, I got into World of Warcraft for a long time. And so that was an awesome game. It's cool that you played it too. 3, have you read any of Terry Pratchett's Discworld series? I have, yeah. When I first moved west and I moved to Colorado, I was biking. It was like 10 miles on bike to get to the job I was at. And so I just listened to audiobooks the whole time. And I probably made it through 50 different audiobooks during that time. And I did listen to at least the first few Discworld series. And I thought they were so funny. And it was a good change of pace because I'd listen to something like Lord of the Rings, which is a serious book. I mean, the actual books, they do have a lot of less serious stuff too, like all the songs and stuff. But a lot of it's pretty serious. And then going to Discworld, it's like, oh, this is funny fantasy. And I liked that a lot. Next one. What guitars and amps did you use in your band, and do you still play at all? First, I'll say I haven't really played in a while. It's been a couple years, all through high school. I'm not exaggerating when I say I played at least 8 hours a day, and if I didn't, I would have this huge feeling of guilt, and it was a lot, and I would just lose sleep so that I could get those hours, and then I'd be at school just sleeping on the desk, and sometimes it wasn't the best thing, but I haven't played much just because I've been focusing on other things. I've said this a few times, I know, during this, but I'm just trying to work on writing and work and stuff right now. So maybe in the future, I know I'll get back to it. I still have one of my guitars, but I just haven't been doing it much. As far as guitars and amps and stuff, in my first metal band, I was young and impressionable, and there was a Guitar Center nearby. So I had the basic standard Schecter black guitar and the Line 6 amp, which is just the most computer sounding setup you can have. I just had all the distortion on it, and I shredded a lot on that, but it kind of let me have some bad habits, I think, because you could kind of mask the fact that you were playing a little sloppy sometimes because there was so much distortion. After that, I was in a few acoustic bands, and I also got very into classical guitar during the time that I was taking classes at college. I only got a 2-year degree, but I did classical guitar, and I did like a performance in front of an auditorium, and it was way more challenging than playing in a band because it's just you and there's no distortion, like I said. And I made it through. I don't think I did that well, but in those bands I had a basic Yamaha acoustic. That's actually the only guitar I still have. And then I had it was actually the signature model of Rodrigo from Rodrigo y Gabriela. They're like a world music Spanish guitar kind of thing. And it was a nylon string. And the music I made, I was playing with someone else who played like djembe and bongos and stuff, world drums. And then I played Spanish sounding guitar, and that was a band I was in for a while. That was really cool. Eventually, the last band I was in, I played a Telecaster, and I had I can't remember which kind of amp it was, but it was a Fender amp, and I just kind of did the plug and play because I thought those guitars sounded so cool. I think that's pretty much it. Had a lot of guitars through the years. I'm sure I forgot a few. I had a resonator for a while. That was pretty cool. But yeah, all right. Next question. Have you ever had a near-death experience? At least one. Yeah, there are a couple that you could say maybe it was similar, but I talked about this on that podcast a little bit that I did with Mark Bell, and then I mentioned it in the book, Sandbag Intensity. But there was a time I was with a couple friends, and we climbed over some barbed wire that had fallen on the ground to this muddy cliff ledge. And then I fell, and I remember I fell a little bit. It was a short drop, and then there were all these nettles, stinging nettles, and I grabbed them, and I was trying to stop, but it was too slippery, and they came out of the ground, and then I fell. It was, I don't know how far, it was pretty far, but I actually watched myself falling from up above, which was, it's a strange thing to have happen. I have no recollection of actually falling. I just remember watching from above, and there was one of the kids there, I think his name was Jonathan, he screaming because, they were down below and they saw it, and he's like, oh no, he's going to die. So I think that's probably the only one where my body reacted in a way, or my brain reacted in a way like, oh, this is that you might die here. Luckily, I didn't. I got carried a couple miles out by my grandfather, I think, ended up in the hospital, and yeah, that sucked. But I'm glad it happened, just because I feel like that did kind of shape the way I view the world a bit. Just having that, it's a crazy thing to completely be outside of your body, watching yourself fall. That's interesting. How does that happen? Is that something I created in my mind, or was I outside of my body? Who knows? But it's cool. It's an interesting thing. Have you ever taken an interest in shooting? And if so, do you own any firearms? I've only shot a gun once. It was pretty cool. It was one of the first days I went to Florida. Figures they were where I was at. There were people, the neighbors were just like shooting guns into the air all day and stuff. But they're like, hey, you want to shoot this dead palm tree? And I did it, and it was pretty cool. I've never been too interested. I think it'd be cool to get into archery at some point, just because those ties to like medieval times and stuff. That always sounds cool to me. Maybe I'll get into guns at some point, but it's just not something I really care too much about at this point. Next one. What did you make of Elevate's latest album, and what's your favorite song and album by them? So when they were releasing the singles for the new album, I wasn't honestly too impressed. For something about it felt like something was missing. And then I heard the full album, and I actually really like it now. There's one song in particular, I can't remember what it's called, but it's just the female vocalist just singing this song with some light music in the background. And when I first heard that, it was chills. It's just so good. And that has to be one of my favorite songs they've ever made. And they actually did a live recording. If you go to their YouTube, you can watch her singing that live out in the wilderness, and it's so good. It's even better than the album version, in my opinion. Favorite album, I'm pretty sure it's called Evocation 2. I'll have to check on that for sure. But that one has all of my favorite songs on it. And it has these little bits in the middle where it's like they're doing like some kind of evocation. They're doing these summoning rituals or something with this droning sound behind it. It's just so cool. And I used to listen to that every time I would do my challenge stone carries around the yard. I would just have that playing on a little phone just set in the yard. And it always made me, felt like I was able to tap into the magic of it, I guess, because I would always do those on the full moon. And I always felt like it was the stone carries for so long. It was like some kind of ritual, and it connected to it. So I have the most memories with that one, and it is my favorite. Back when I was traveling a bit in the RV, I really liked the album that had the Call of the Mountains. That one's really cool, though as time has gone by, I don't really listen to that one as much anymore. I think it's just something about those other ones just hit that place that I like more. So yeah. Polished silver or polished black? I'm not sure if that refers to something that I'm unaware of, so I don't know if this is a good answer, but off the top of my head, I would say polished black, just because it sounds cool. All right, last one. Have you ever traveled outside the US? And if so, which countries have you visited? If not, where would you be most interested in traveling? When I was very young, I went to Cancun for a couple days. I think that's kind of funny to have a kid go there. But other than that, I haven't been anywhere. I'd like to go to Europe, to all those stone lifting countries, or I guess there's stone lifting everywhere, but the ones you think of like Scotland and Iceland and stuff like that. I'd like to go to just that general part of the world. Partly because I want to lift stones, but partly because of the idea of magic again. So when I go to I'm in the mountains right now, but when I go further out into the woods here in the Rockies, there are certain places where it feels like, yeah, there's something to this place. This is like an enchanted wood or something, and it feels really cool. But possibly just from conditioning, watching TV and movies and reading things, the thought of like ancient forests in Sweden or something like that seems like there must be some kind of magic that doesn't exist anywhere else in those old growth forests if you go far enough out. And I just want to see if that's true. I want to go out there and see if, oh yeah, you can tell there's something different here. And yeah, that's all the questions. So thanks again for watching this far. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed this just kind of talking to the camera style over the old Q&As that I was doing where I was doing all voiceovers and stuff. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.